In mind that one of the primary reasons for collecting data is so that you can support your field team. You know, they're collecting data for their own selves to use. They've got to go back and follow up those sites. It's useful for them to know where they are. If you collect the right data, they don't have to research that whole forest. They can go straight back to where they found it last time. That's where the maturing targets were, and go straight back there. Saving yourselves time, energy, resources, and thinking along those lines will help you select the right data that you need to record. Things have qualities which are really useful for us to help manage weeds, but they also have limitations. So what's good about using images for recording your work? What's the advantages of doing it? Why would you do that?
Specifying what exactly you're talking about.
Yep.
You're identifying.
Yep. So, proof, photo points. Any limitations?
It's not quantitative.
Yep, it's not
It's
scientific.
qualitative.
What was the features of using maps? Why were maps so good? Yeah, you could see. You could see everything.
Here's an old paper map that we used to use, which would just have basically land boundaries on. No GPS, we'd be down there in the bush with a compass and trying to locate the boundaries. We're not working on private property, we're working in reserves. So, you know, we used to call ourselves the Whakawe tribe. We're the Whakawe, you know?
Yeah.
Once you've got a GPS, because when you're doing weed management on forest, you're lost the whole time. You don't really know where you are unless you've got a GPS, which is telling you where you are. Otherwise, you know, you're using to the best of your ability a compass and a map, and you're spending a lot of time ensuring that you're going in the right direction, that you're covering everything. It's a lot of work to have maps on a GPS and it was a massive breakthrough for doing the work.
So with the maps, I mean, it's easy to see the topography, where you are generally, contour lines. It's easy, but there's no location data. You're not positioned on there unless you work it out with a compass, or you can read the features of where you are. And there's no ability to record where you've been unless you do it manually on that map.
Where you think you've been.
Where you think you've been, exactly. Okay, so some features, but also some limitations of maps. Okay, handheld GPS. Major step forward with technology to help us in the field. What are the good things about it? Okay, so it's accurate, right? And even compared, you know, the Garmin's that we're all used to using, what are they, C60 Garmin's? Even compared to mobile phones, they're very accurate. What? Anything else? Waterproof?
They're waterproof.
They're robust.
The new ones they have now, you have cameras on it now.
They're pretty hard to break, man.
Yes.
Okay, but what are the limitations with them? Why don't we just use those? Why are we looking at these other things? Why would we do that?
The thing with the GPS, you still have to download the books and get back to the office.
Yeah. So it's hard to share. Hard to share the data. Oh yeah, I remember when all my guys, we were supplying them to all my guys, and one of my guys lost one of them. They were like $600 each. We had to have a disciplinary process around that because it was a lot of money for us at the time. So the cost is an issue. The hardware. What else?
The points and such?
Yeah. Yeah, well that's right. It's hard to label your points and your tracks. You know, the big thing though with the Garmin's is that even once you get them, like you have to physically get them and plug them in to download them. That's a pretty limiting factor, especially if you've got people right across your country. You might have teams that are dispersed all over the place. To get that data, you've got to physically get that unit and plug it into a computer. You can email it from there to share it, but there's all these things are extra steps. And each time there's an extra step, there's an extra opportunity for something to go wrong. Okay, so that's a limitation. There's another limitation in terms of once you get it, You plug it in, you download it, basically you've got a set of points and lines. What does that mean? What do they mean? How do you manage that? You've basically got to be a GIS guy to make sense of it all, but you've also got to be a field guy to know what those things were that were recorded in the first place. Yeah. So there's some issues there. There's a whole series of steps there. And in theory, it's possible. I mean, Dave did it back in the day on Rangitoto. Yep. Yep. It's possible, but it's a lot of work. And getting to the point where you're recording the data in the field, getting those GPSs, plugging them in, downloading it, making sense of it, then analysing that data in the GIS, preparing maps for the next season for your guys to go back into the field, getting those GPSs, plugging them back in, downloading the maps onto it. That's hard, man. That's hard to achieve. And in fact, that's one of the few times I've actually seen it done. A lot of times people are just recording data, using it to generate reports for their bosses or for funding or whatever. But that extra step of providing that data or the analysed data back to your field team to help them the next year, it's pretty tough. You've got to physically get those machines, make the maps on the GIS, and then download them back onto those machines. Yes. We've witnessed a lot of changes in technology, and we've been really open about what's developing, what's coming up, how can we use that to do our work better? How can we use it all to make our lives easier? How can we use it to make it easier for the team in the field? Yeah, so it's not, that's what I'm saying, it's not just one thing. It's not just one solution here. There's a range of solutions, and it's important to just stay really open-minded about what. Then we had access databases. Actually, we were using handheld GPSs in tandem with access databases. So what are some of the key features of using access databases? Why would we use them?
As a good way of keeping records.
Yeah, well, yep, a good way of managing large amounts of data. You can query it, you can ask it questions.
It's also good to ensure that the right information is going in.
Yeah.
So you can limit what data enters can put in the boxes.
So it's good for data quality.
Prior to that, we were just using Excel sheets, which can be problematic. You have to insert rows all the time. Then there's lots of versions of the Excel sheet. There might be 30 different versions. This is kind of organises all your data.
Yeah, it's a good tool for managing your data. Obviously, you're not recording it in Access, but it's a good way of managing large data sets. But it's got some limitations as well. What are the limitations of using Access?
A lot of work is.
Yeah, it's a lot
Most
of
of the
work.
time you have to fill in them like a piece of paper and fill it in. You have to come back to the office and put it all in the database.
Yeah. Yep.
Separate operation to enter the data.
Yep. So you've got data entry. Normally you would associate issues with data quality where you're having to manually enter data. You know, the two kind of go hand in hand, except that you can limit what goes in there with drop-down lists. So you can mitigate that. But for me, the main issue with Access is that connectivity. You know, it's hard to share. You can't automate the input. There's also, you know, if you're using standalone Access databases, there's, you know, you might have it on your laptop. It's not necessarily backup unless you go about doing that, which is an extra step. It's not automatically backed up. Okay, so we looked at Locus Map the other day. One of the good things is that everybody's got the hardware. They already have it. There's no cost involved really because everyone's got a mobile phone, or most people, and you're not having to supply an extra piece of hardware for it.
There was one catch.
Doesn't work on Apple.
Oh, it didn't work on Apple, yeah. So most people have the hardware.
I think Android has a larger market share now, so it's probably true that most people have the hardware.
And they may develop an Apple version one day.
Another key feature is your ability to add metadata to your points and lines. What is this point? What is the species that it represents? What's the number of square meters that it represents? Very easy to add that extra piece of information to that point. Stays with that point. When we're talking about points, we're talking about a grid reference. Point on the earth. Not so useful if you don't know what it's representing, but very useful if you can attach just a little bit of extra data to it.
You have metadata to an existing point, like a record. Same point. So if you have a weak point, you go identify and the details like coverage, age, class. Then you add another record to that same point.
Yeah, you can add anything to it, mate. You can add a photograph to it. Yeah, there's no real limit. There's like text fields. You can add.
Can you use that one with your offline?
Can be used offline, yep. One of the advantages of Locus app compared to a lot of other apps is that you can use it to record points but also track log within the same app. Not all of them can do that. I mean, that sounds pretty good, right? As long as you've got a Android phone, and that's pretty much the ball game, isn't it? It's pretty much spot on. Now, there are some limitations as well. The biggest limitation, though, really, is that it's a very effective tool where you've got a very small team. It's less effective if you've got a very big team because your data is not aggregated within the app.
So how does it get aggregated?
You have to do that manually. You have to import each person's data into a GIS or into a spreadsheet. You can there are various things that you can output to, various formats that you can output to on your device, but you're doing it individually. Yeah, there are other tools which aggregate it automatically to a website. And then if you're the manager, you can log on to the website, you can see everybody's data there, synchronized. But Locus doesn't do that.
So it's just a data collection tool, obviously.
Yeah.
Not a
Yep.
store or a tool for analysis or...
No, not so much. Well, it might do that, but it's a very powerful app. But yeah, as far as I've used it, that's all we've used it for. And it works very well for small teams or individuals. Very good. The other thing is that it's free. You know? There's no limitations on that. Some of the other apps that I'm talking about which aggregate the data, you've got to pay a subscription for. So, all I'm trying to get you to think about is that there's pluses and minuses with different things. Depends on your situation, depends on what you're trying to do.